revenue from our clients, and that's the status quo on our existing arrangement. Projected net cost through consolidation. Our net cost in 16-17 projected at $419,000, going up to about $453,000 in that last year, and that's just using the assumption of 3% adjustment a year for the rate being charged. At the bottom, all of those numbers combined show a savings of about $1.2 million. Pretty significant chunk of change. It's not $2.1 million, but we have a fire department with us if we make that move, and we think that's important. Now, the projected net cost on consolidation, that includes some expenses that we've put aside in for coverage of ancillary services that we'll talk about in just a minute. 2 part-timers in the police department. Potentially some expanded service hours in the evening hours, perhaps early morning hours. That'll be discussed with the new chief moving forward, but there's a possibility that could happen. We're going to talk about how we cover those ancillary services in just a moment. That also includes dispatching for public works. I believe it's about $4,000 or $5,000 based on the number of calls they have. There is a fee per call for public works. It's about half of what the law enforcement number is. Based on the number that we've had historically, that works out to about $4,600. There's some numbers in there for equipment, video or phone in the lobby for walk-in calls. They want to walk in, pick up receiver, and they connect right to CENTCOM. So there's a little bit of a equipment cost in there. We try to factor all of that into there so you've got an accurate picture of what that savings might be. So we're looking at about $1.2 million over that 5-year period. So that's really only a 4-year period of when the actual savings kicks in with CENTCOM that fixes that 1.2. Oh, there's no hours here. Not sure. Okay. Questions about the ancillary duties? We had broken those into 3 categories in our last meeting. One is dispatch related. That's the primary focus of dispatch. Primary related to dispatch. We also have public safety related. That's assisting the police department. And we also have a village-wide service related. This is breaking that down into three various categories. So the dispatch related, there is no change in the ancillary duties. If dispatch is handling that duty now, CENTCOM will handle that moving forward. We still have our lead coordinator as the chief administrative assistant. That will remain the same. So these are primary lead related. There will be no change on that side of the ancillary duty. Public safety related. This is where the change comes in. So if you're going to save that kind of money, this is the trade-off. There are a few ancillary services that get modified. This is what the board needs to be aware of. We need to be comfortable with this, moving forward with this. So the first one up here, this non-emergency calls after hours. Right now, they call the non-emergency number after hours. Dispatch picks that up 24 hours a day. Under what we're proposing, they would have some kind of messaging system that would either go through to an answering machine, or that would go to some other answering point that we have to arrange for. Walk-in complaints after hours. Right now, if I'm not mistaken, they walk in and hit the intercom button. The talk to dispatch via the intercom, and the police officer is dispatched to come to the lobby to talk to that complaint. But what will happen if CENTCOM gets that service is they'll walk in, they'll pick up a phone, they'll get a video connect with CENTCOM dispatchers. CENTCOM will dispatch that officer. It's nearly identical in that regard. Prisoner checks. Currently, there's a requirement that we have to monitor prisoners kept in our building. We have to be somebody in our building at all times to do that. We do that through dispatch now. If dispatch goes away, overnight prisoners are going to have to go away in our facility. We have talked with Blake Zurich. They have a service available, $50 a prisoner. We had 36 prisoners last year in 2014. So those fees have been factored into the savings analysis, give you an idea of how much you can save doing that. Okay, traffic ticket processing after hours, record entry after hours, inbound fees, boat inspection fees after hours. None of that would happen at our police facility after hours. Impound fees in particular, I'm familiar with working with an impound yard where they collect the money, they forward that money to us. There are other ways to get around that, but it's not going to be the same. There's going to be a change there. So if the board has to be comfortable with that to make that decision, $300,000 a year is a pretty good chunk of change to gain incentive for that. The other one's village-wide support for ancillary duties. Village calls after hours. Right now, dispatch. I think the answer is calling they call the police department. Some people may ask, oh, hey, what day is Wauconda Fest or something. They get that information now. If the dispatch is not there and CENTCOM is answering our emergency phones, that's going to be a during business hours only telephone call. So that will be a slight change in what's going on. Garage sale permits after hours, that will go away. I don't know if anybody really wants a garage sale permit for you, but that drives you, that'll be available if you keep this. So those are the ancillary duties that we've identified. Those are the ones that have changed. There are a whole list of ancillary duties. These are the ones that have changed. Okay. In the packets, we have 3 documents from CENTCOM, or actually 2 from CENTCOM and 1 that I put together. The first one is the base intergovernmental agreement. That was the one that CENTCOM suggested would be the membership agreement. Approval of that and would get membership to the board. There's a great deal of discussion in there about a detention facility and how that's operated and protections for that. We're not interested in participating in that detention facility. So the base agreement is fine, but we needed a little bit more discussion about the backup facility that we talked about. The backup facility, in exchange for becoming a member of CENTCOM, what is being proposed is that as a buy-in fee to CENTCOM, there's usually a capital buy-in fee for their members. They would take over our equipment in place, operate a backup training facility out of our facility, train their employees to provide backup services, to provide training. Anyway, operate that active backup site. So the intergovernmental agreement, I labeled it the addendum to the intergovernmental agreement. That gives those integrated links about the different components of how that relationship is going to be handled. And I think perhaps at this point maybe we should walk through some of those agreements and see what kind of questions you may have. If you have any questions, you can comment on that regard. So let's start with the base agreement. As I said, this is very generic as far as I'm concerned, and just talks about general membership, talks about voting, talks about responsibilities as a member. Okay. So it talks about the executive board, it talks about the bylaws, which also are attached. Talks about voting. Talks about participation in CENTCOM's Public Safety Communication Center. Termination, it's can be by either party with 365 days advance notice, written notice. Talks about the powers of the board. And then we get into quite a bit about the detention facility, which again I mentioned is not something that I'm proposing that we be interested in. And most of the rest of that section is, or those following sections are in relation to that detention facility. So it's a fairly basic document. All of the members of CENTCOM sign off on that, as well as the new members. So we would have to approve that and sign off on that. Starting on page 62, there are bylaws of CENTCOM 911. Again, I mean, we're members of a number of different agencies, and we're used to seeing these. There's nothing unusual in there. It talks about the duties of the board, the voting. Talks about the chief's operations board, and that's kind of an oversight on operations there, with recommendations to the executive board. Talks about vacancies. Talks about the director, administration, and that's again, they talk about termination. And that's about it for the bylaws. The real thing that we need to talk about tonight, in my opinion, is the addendum to the intergovernmental agreement and what that calls for and what that does. So in section 1, it just talks about authority to enter into the agreement. It talks about what both parties want to do. CENTCOM is a consortium of local government entities. We want to be a member of CENTCOM, according to this document. Let's see. Talks about the backup facility on item F, section 1. CENTCOM desires to have Wauconda as a member and to establish and operate an active backup training facility, which is identified as a backup facility throughout the rest of the document. Item H is affects the Wauconda Fire Protection District. We threw that in there that because I feel so strongly that the Wauconda Police and Wauconda Fire Protection District need to stay together, I put in this as item H that unless membership is offered and accepted by both police and Wauconda Fire Protection District, this agreement is invalid. So if one of them doesn't get an offer that they're comfortable with, or there's something in there that they're not comfortable with and they don't accept membership, we're not a member either. Section 2 talks about the capital buy-in for admission. That's the equipment that we have using for dispatches now, the radio console, the radio, the furniture. That is turned over to CENTCOM after we become members. CENTCOM wants to operate that equipment on site in our police department. We also recognize that there is some ETSB equipment operating out of Wauconda Police Department. Talks about the transfer of ownership in item F. As part of that transfer of ownership, CENTCOM is waiving the buy-in, the capital buy-in fee for the village of Wauconda and Wauconda Fire Protection District. So there's no additional cost that would not be charged or assessed to the rest of the members based for capital.
Absolutely. Doug, once, I think I know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask. Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay, I'm going to ask anyway. Once ownership is transferred, and one of the gentlemen was talking about technology. As we all know, technology moves at a pace much faster than government moves. Once ownership is transferred, though, any upgrades, any changes would be the responsibility of CENTCOM?
That's correct. As a matter of fact, we have identified some upgrades that would need to happen to be compatible with the equipment that they're currently using, versions that they're currently using.
Do we have, what are the major compatibility issues that stand out right now in terms of our Stocktown system? What are any compatibility issues that we have to do with that?
You know what, that may be a better question for Chief Dale or Chief Maplecourt. There's a technology guru.
Should we wait on that, or should you keep on going with the assessment? Yeah, we probably should take it a step at a time. lot of people that have questions about technology and coming to my voice very to you all. Through the camera. I usually hide behind the camera. Anyway, the technology piece, the StarCom issue has been brought up. Actually, SunCom has 2.5 times the StarCom capabilities that the Canada has today. It's used currently with Barrington. It's used currently with the Village of Barrington, both police and fire. It's used with Barrington Countryside Fire District, as well as it monitors a number of statewide Mavis talkers, Mavis and Ilias and other talkers. So when we compare apples to apples, Suncom's already ahead. Part of the Wauconda's responsibility would be to add 2 more control stations in Suncom for the grabbing for word here, but the specific use of Wauconda Police Department. So they actually be expanding the existing capabilities. Technology, the comment about technology changing, I can almost guarantee you if you install something today, by the time the power is turned on, it's already obsolete. And that is true in the 911 field. Suncom has actually been a leader from the very beginning of Enhanced 911. It was one of the first Enhanced 911 systems activated in Lake County on September 15, 1991, which beat the county system by almost 2.5 years of being on the air. Suncom was the first 911 call center in Lake County to do phase 2 wireless mapping, where they could actually take the geographic coordinates off of a cell phone and map to a specific location where that caller was. The sheriff, a lot of other PSAPs would transfer 911 calls to Suncom to get that mapping capability. Text to 911, part of the next gen, what they call next gen or next generation 911. Suncom was the first in Lake County to go live with text to 911, where if you're within the Village of Barrington or the Round Lake, the 4 Round Lakes of Gainesville communities or cell towers that cover those, it's kind of interesting how it all works. You would find that you could actually text a message and it is answered from within the 911 center. You literally text 911, you text to 911 and the message pops up along with your geographic location. That's actually been turned on since very late in June. It was announced July 15th that it went live. But we've actually had it on since late in June. So the technology piece, yeah, it's always going to be obsolete to some point the minute it's turned on. But there is not a technology deficit within that facility. It's operating state-of-the-art radio console equipment, it's operating state-of-the-art telephone equipment. I can tell you that there are other PSAPs, we're kind of included that the current 911 system is being limped along with spare parts that were acquired when Antioch merged into Suncom 3 years ago. I believe it was 3 years ago now. There's a new system planned, but it's been held up for a number of reasons being implemented. So technology is a big piece of this, but there isn't the technology deficit that has been thought of. That answers the question or not. Or if it answers more. Another question. You mentioned 2 more stations at the center that have to be added. Terminals,
They're radio control stations, yes.
Okay, would they be transferred from our current site there, or would we be buying, would we mean Wauconda be buying it?
I believe that's part of your capital plan to upgrade, is yes, you would buy those control stations.
We have $10,000 allocated in that.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Chief, my question would be, what is the technological comparison between CENTCOM and the other dispatch centers that are out there that, for lack of a better word, you guys compete with for members of clients?
We do said an interesting word, members versus clients. And And that's the big thing about Suncom is everybody's a member. It's not, and there are no other dispatch centers in Lake County that follow that model. Every other center there's a municipal owner and everybody else is a customer. The Suncom model, which was created back in 1989, went in service in 91, was based on both Wauconda and Northwest Central that have been consolidated dispatch for much longer. And using that concept of everyone's a member, everyone's an equal vote, everybody gets an equal share in the operation of the facility. So that's interesting you said that. To more directly answer your question, technology is very different across the board from my experience in Lake County. Does it all do basically the same things? Yes. Is the technology behind the wall the same or roughly the same? Yes, it's all about the same. There's always some graphic user interface to run a computer that connects to some external radio or telephone trunk or computer-aided dispatch. It's all, kind of magic behind the scenes. And certainly if you buy brand A versus brand X of a piece of equipment, it's going to have some neat GWIS features that the other one doesn't and vice versa. But the technology it's all basically the same. It all works similarly. It provides the same service. I'm not aware, there's a few small centers that I've not been in, like Harvard or Chicago and places like that, but all the bigger centers, the technology is pretty much the same. The computer-aided dispatch system, which is actually owned by the Lake County Emergency Telephone System Board, pretty much everybody in the western half of the county shares that system now. So, the whole Northwest Quad uses it. Mundelein just came on. So pretty much everything west of 45 utilizes the same computer-aided dispatch system. So it's all shared now. So that technology is the same.
So there's no significant technological difference between CENTCOM and any of the other providers that may be out there for
Not that I'm aware of. Okay.
I also had a question, just a generic question. When does the chief board meet? So we can perhaps send a representative there to ask some more detailed questions and see how you guys operate.
Yeah, third Thursday of every month we meet. Actually, the chairman of the Chiefs Operations Board is here, Chief Barry from the Barrington Fire Department, is the chair of the Suncom Chiefs Board. But it meets once a month, third Thursday at 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
Trust me, I know. Because I did see in your bylaws that you are subject to the Open Meetings Act, so we can certainly show up there and ask questions or listen and find out who you guys are operating. Yeah. I think that maybe at least at the outset, some of my technological questions. I do have a lot more questions to ask as we go through. My fellow trustees weigh in as well.
And I have a question for you as well. Are there any anticipated upgrades that Suncom is considering in the next 5 years for the 5 years? We should be aware of before we enter into this agreement.
The only significant technological upgrade in the next 5 years would be expanding into the next gen 911 capability. If my crystal ball was perfectly clear, I would say it would probably become a partnership between Suncom and the Lake County ETSB that could piggyback onto the system that they've already purchased, which would be a significant reduction in overall cost, which would be the same system that would be installed in Wauconda, which should Wauconda's PSAP stay in existence. But that's the only big piece of the puzzle that I see in the next 5 years is upgraded 911 to the next generation 911.
What was that cost?
I can't answer that.
I thought I read somewhere that all your capabilities back 21 a year. No?
Not true at all.
Okay.
StarCom is just for those of you who don't know what StarCom is in the audience, StarCom is a name of the state of Illinois' statewide 700 to 800 megahertz trunk radio system, which is basically Nextel on steroids. is a good way to look at that. And it's actually owned by Motorola, operated for the state of Illinois. The county of Lake signed a contract last year to migrate their proprietary radio system onto Starcom's network because their system is no longer supported. Wauconda, the village of Wauconda, 4 or 5 years ago, migrated onto Starcom for the police department. It is a radio system. There are lots of different radio systems. So the Starcom is a small piece of the overall public safety communications puzzle, and there is no requirement to go to it.
Chief, since we're on the tech now, I visited this town today. I was very impressed by it. I did ask a question because I saw it somewhere done. I don't remember if I saw it previous communication or where. But is there an issue regarding a trunk line that has to be installed between the town and town?
A trunk line is.
What is a trunk line?
A trunk line is basically a T1 circuit. It's a trunk circuit that the phone company installs to run enhanced 911 voice and data over. And under the current Wauconda plan, we would require, and since we started this cycle, getting information out of AT&T is like pulling wisdom teeth that are severely impacted. Nothing moves fast with AT&T. So they have to do call analysis and volume analysis, and then they make recommendations because they control a lot of the 911, and then that has to be approved by the Illinois Commerce Commission. So there is a bit of a process involved in that, but I believe the initial thought was there would be 2 trunk lines added into CENTCOM to handle the Wauconda 911 traffic, 2 wired lines, and I think it's 2 wireless, because which gets paid for by the state of Illinois anyway. But that's wireless and wired line come in and using different technologies over the 911 center.
So there's no cost to the village required just for those lines or the licensing fees or anything?
I don't believe.
Yeah, the discussion was initial installation of that, we would arrange and be responsible for, and then the ongoing maintenance would be part of the town responsibility.
Do you have a cost figure?
ETS people pick that up, I'm just being told. Right.
So the initial move is part of a ICC filing that we as ETSB have to do. So what happens is ETSB takes that off. By the time of 96, there's funding because of the tariff change. The funding from payment troughs and other troughs will come out of that money that the state will be collecting. So the ETSB will only be paying for those in the future. Does that answer your question, President?
Thank you.
Other questions on both? Technical questions?
Okay, just moving along here to the last item in section 2. It just says CENTCOM accepts the Wauconda dispatch equipment and little capital equipment buying on an as-is basis. And they would be responsible for any hardware, software upgrades, so a little bit of protection for us there. Any other questions about section 2?
I do have a question about item B, the active backup training facility. Someone define what that looks like. There's people there every day. They can be using it as an ancillary dispatch center.
More of an operational question without unfair account. The issue CENTCOM is currently faced with is backup capability should there be a catastrophic failure within the 911 center at CENTCOM. Under our current backup plan, Foxtown, which their director, and that's sitting here at the table, is the primary backup, and Barrington Hills becomes a backup for the Barrington area. Barrington Hills dispatch is going away. They've done what you're contemplating, and they are taking their dispatch into Wauconda, which is basically, well, Suncom is captured in Wauconda. The intergovernmental agreement, if you look at it closely, is almost a mirror of Wauconda. Foxconn, because of Suncom's size, having taken in Antioch as well as the growth around the area, it stresses both Foxconn's capability as well as Suncom's to operate for any length of time out of their facility. So actually, Chief NATO and I have been advancing this for probably 5 years about building what we refer to as a hot standby 911 center, which means it's an equipped, not staffed 911 center that in the event of a catastrophic failure, there would be a short-term plan to move 911 calls to an operating facility while the hot standby is brought online, which would basically be the time it takes to move dispatch personnel from a 911 center into the hot standby and bring it online. So 30 minutes would be an example of the time. There's other issues within the county. The Wauconda's PSAP is the backup for the sheriff's office, so they're going to have to find another backup. It's also the backup for Lake Zurich. So what we've talked about in our conversation is developing that as a hot standby facility for perhaps several different pieces, where if Lake Zurich has a catastrophic failure, they would be able to move into that facility and operate out. If the sheriff had a catastrophic failure, they'd be able to move into that facility and operate out. So that is the theory that we're operating under with developing a hot standby facility. It has been successfully done in other areas, not only within the state, but around the nation. It's not a new crazy thing that the NATO Corps team came up with. It was actually a proven system. Chicago has a similar process, although their backup facility is staffed. They have a 311 call center for non-emergency that's staffed marginally on the off hours, the off business hours, but they can ramp that up to be their backup center for their staff in Chicago. So it's kind of one of those items that we've been talking about for many years, and this gives us the opportunity to make that happen in a center that's there and built. Is it optimum? No. It'll still be small and cramped for Suncom to operate out of the Wauconda's facility, but we've had some initial looks at how we can do minor modification to the facility to accommodate additional staff within your existing building.
And all software upgrades, equipment upgrades would be responsibility of that.
Suncom would take ownership of the equipment within your facility, and it would be our responsibility for that.
Chief, if Wauconda's backup didn't exist, what would it cost Centcom to build something like that and have it?
$6 million. You're probably assuming we had a facility that had adequate power, security, and protection. You're looking at $1.5 million to $2 million to properly equip a center. That's a real swag number.
So you're getting a good deal.
Yeah, right.
So are you.
I don't know.
I'm a negotiator, I'm not sure we both understand.
No, we understand.
And we did a very similar deal with Antioch. When Antioch came in 3 years ago, we took all of the non-ETSB dispatch equipment out of Antioch's PSAP, which happened to be, other than the telephone equipment, was identical to what Suncom has in their facility now, and incorporated their equipment into Suncom's operations. So it's a very similar proposal that was done with Antioch 3 years, maybe 4 years ago. Time flies, but it's been a while.
The capital line, you said it was 80 to 100,000.
That's a number that I've heard somewhere. I don't believe that was shared with our meeting with CENTCOM. That's a number that somebody else told me on that.
I heard it somewhere.
I don't know if it's ever been quantified.
I'm not
Chief Dale said I'd never get the mic back after Chief Nichols broke out. So probably something special that Section 3, just very quickly in that, talks about the transition period for services provided. We're estimating approximately 6 months will be a cutover date mutually agreed upon. Paragraph B talks about the ownership of the Wauconda dispatch equipment. That will not transfer to CENTCOM until after some period of time where we can prove everything is working adequately. It's a bit of a safety blanket for us. That's structured more as a client relationship, but I'd like to put something in there for a little protection. I'm sure that's going to be discussed and negotiated as well. There also are some ancillary duties for Wauconda Police and Wauconda Public Works. And I had put in here at no additional charge. There is a charge for dispatching Wauconda Public Works. That's I think it's $16 and some cents per call out. That I believe that came out to about $4,600 a year based on the number of call outs that we had done in the past year. So that was included in our analysis up here, even though I missed that in the language on here. So CENTCOM will also passively monitor the Police Department building security and camera system, and they will also receive walk-in service requests after hours and on holidays in Section 3. So any questions on any of that area?
Are there any upgrades needed for current ones?
For the lobby?
Anywhere that they would have time?
No, there is not. At current time, I mean, that has a lifespan to it. At some point it will, but at the current time, it's operating. Anything else? Okay, Section 4, we talk about the infrastructure and equipment. We permit access to CENTCOM personnel and their vendors in our facility for installation, replacement, periodic maintenance, and upgrades to dispatch equipment. There talks about a microwave communications infrastructure from our facility to CENTCOM. I believe that's in place for mutual aid. Is that ETSB? Okay. So that probably needs to be changed in that wording as well. Let's see. CENTCOM can install new equipment if they so desire, as long as it fits within that space allocation, that footprint. If they need anything larger than that, we're going to need to sit down and talk about that and how that would impact our normal business. We talked about normal business telephones on the desktop. We will provide those as part of our facility maintenance. We also provide maintenance for the video and the telecommunications connections to CENTCOM and Wauconda Police. Let's see. We're responsible for the building security and camera system, as we just mentioned. And then we put in a clause in here that the chief of police can establish reasonable rules for access to the Wauconda Police facility. Question?
Yeah.
The passive monitoring system referenced in sections 4A and 4F, is that something that ETSD is also going to pay for, or is that something we're going to have to pay for?
That's part of our regular fee.
Part of our,
So
the equipment though.
the equipment we're responsible for that.
Okay, and what's the projected cost of purchasing and installing that equipment?
We don't know. It's up and active right now. And when that expires, when that useful life is over, we'll have to replace that.
Okay, so they'll just be tapping in to what we have.
We will provide that fee to them that we're currently operating, and they will provide that passive monitoring.
So there will be no additional technology needed to be installed in order for them to conduct the passive monitoring as opposed to the video link that we've already got.
That's my understanding, there'll be no additional. That's part of that connection to CENTCOM.
Okay, so you guys will be tapping in to our feed, so when someone comes to the police station after hours and presses that button, everything is already in place, you just guys have to link into something that's already there, or are we gonna need to buy extra equipment in order for that video and audio signal to go from our police lobby to CENTCOM?
We do have to provide the phone and the video in the lobby itself.
Right. And how much is that going to cost?
That's what the $2,500.
Okay.
Other questions?
All right, section 5 talks about the fees, the current fee. For CAD call is $23.92. It references a fee policy and formula. I got that late Friday. That has not been attached to this agreement. I can provide that to you as well. Section 6, actually, let me back up a minute on fees. I did look at the history of that, asked for that. I think that was adjusted 3% last year. It was adjusted 7 or 7.5% the prior year, and then I believe it was 5 years prior to that, there was no adjustment from when that original fee policy was put in place. So they played a little catch-up over the last couple of years. I would expect them to have some adjustment annually moving forward from that. So,
I have a question on that too. I would like a copy of the fee policy formula and the history of the fees.
Okay.
And then do all the entities pay the same amount?
Yeah.
What kind of fire, what kind of police, Barrington police?
Per call.
Based on what type of law enforcement.
There's a law enforcement fee and a fire fee and a public works fee that are all different. Law enforcement, I believe, is $23 a call. Fire is about $32 a call right now. Public works is $16. What's interesting is it's not necessarily a CAD call. That term was just thrown out. CENTCOM in that policy you're provided has a very detailed list of what's a call and what isn't. So every time an officer says they're out of the PD to check a prisoner, or they're out for lunch, or they're doing something, that is not a call. Even though it's a radio message that'll go over the air, will be answered by dispatcher, that's not a call. The calls are more dispatch calls or officer initiated, like a traffic stop type of scenario.
Is there a charge for when the officer calls in?
No. Only if the officer is calling in a traffic stop or initiating an incident, yes, that's a charge. But if, just calling in their status is not a charge.
That's totally no other cost.
You can call me Paul Kevin. Ben's the only person on the board I've ever met before. No, it's, there are no hidden charges other than there is the rent fee that we agreed to waive for the conduct or the use of the facility. So that's the only other fee, and that's a few $100s a month for the rest of it. So it's not a big amount of money. There are no other fees. It's all built into that formula. That formula, I can tell you, took 20 years to get into place. A lot of bloody, knock-down, drag-out fights over 20 years to get that formula. We like it.
We like to see that as well. And so the rent is that going to be waived for us for this year?
The agreement that we're in consideration is as long as we're using your facility for the hot standby, the rent is waived.
Normal rent is how much?
It's $3,500 a year per member.
If you proceed, and
Again, my crystal ball is real cloudy right now.
You don't want to go too long.
With everything going on.
Technology could go down,
If I were a wizard of the world, someday I want to be, well, you're going to see and this is part of the 911 consolidation study that the county ETSB is studying right now, is what is the future going to look like? It's not going to be tomorrow. It's not going to be 10 years from now. If I were to stand here 20 years from now, I'd probably tell you that none of the existing 911 centers in Lake County will exist as they are today. Everybody will be somewhere else. How that is built, how that is organized, is way too early to even consider that. I know CENTCOM has talked about, and we were more or less put it on the back burner, waiting to see what the IXP study recommends. But yeah, we've been talking about a new facility, a larger facility, one that's more tornado resistant. There's a great model down in Will County, the dispatch center that was just built to withstand enough tornado, reasonably built actually. So there's a lot of the future. Who knows? It's way too early to tell.
And I want to pin you down, and a guess is fine, in terms of likelihood that we'd still be using our facility 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 15 years from now. If you could just give us a rough percentage of likelihood, we could go start.
5 high, 10 marginal, 20 I doubt.
Okay. That's our opinion. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so I think we just covered the rent, basically, section 7. Talks about, CENTCOM responsible for making secure and clear about CENTCOM equipment and software in the backup facility. Talk about, operating supplies directly related to dispatch services, that's the responsibility of CENTCOM. The village of Wauconda will be responsible for ordinary cleaning of the backup facility. We will make available restroom and daycare facilities and supplies for those. And let's see, HVAC will maintain that good working order, which we can do for our police department anyway. We attempt to, it hasn't been such a good track record the last couple of years. And then let's see, again, subject to reasonable rules and regulations of the county police department, as far as use of those facilities. Any questions there? All right, section 8 is a big one that we spent some time on. Talks about the closure of our dispatch facility and what happens then. And unfortunately, that's the human factor here. CENTCOM will have to add personnel to be able to accommodate our additional business as well as the Wauconda Fire Protection District. And then paragraph C under section 8 talks about first priority for filling those positions for our employees. Questions there?
About how many people are we speaking about that?
About how many people would be needed to be added to CENTCOM to fulfill the vacancies?
Last Thursday, we had a lengthy discussion about dispatch models between Wauconda and Point. They would be between 6 to 8, depending on which model they operate.
I also understand you're down 3 positions from your on-site level.
Chief Dado, you're familiar with both the training levels and of our existing dispatchers and the training qualifications necessary for CENTCOM. Do our people at least on paper match up with the type of folks that CENTCOM looks to hire generally?
I do not know what training the county currently has. I do know the type of operation, listening, monitoring, same thing with CENTCOM. I would say there are certain individuals that will probably fit the qualifications of CENTCOM. I think there's other individuals that won't. That's my personal opinion.
So it's unlikely that of those 8 or so additional positions, you would fill all of them with existing Wauconda dispatchers.
I'm not the one in charge of hiring, so I couldn't answer that question.
But sounds like you're saying it's unlikely that you stay on team.
Personal opinion is that if I was in a position then I would carefully look at each and every one for position. And I'll leave it at that.
That's fine. And, you know, the answers that you give, we're trying to get answers. And whatever the answer is, the answer is.
And I understand that. However, I think, hiring someone is a very involved event. And I think that, again, you have to look at individual qualifications and figure out how they fit the criteria for the Sunshine Law.
Absolutely. I do have a lot more questions as we're going through, so I'll wait until Administrator Maxiner is done, and then I know some of the questions I have, there's a wide variety of different people who are probably going to be answering, so I understand.
I have a question on personnel as well. Would any people that would be hired from Wauconda dispatch, would they be hired at a comparable salary level, or would they start at the bottom?
We have had discussions about that. I can't make any promises about that. There are no, I believe there are no restrictions in the collective bargaining agreement as far as where they would be placed. There might be some restrictions, but there might be some latitude to place them at a place other than the starting position in their wage scale. That's a decision for the director and for the I have asked if they can consider that.
What is the current turnover rate in town? You have 3 vacancies right now. Is there something we should be aware of?
I think the answer to the turnover rate that the operation long time.
Who would be able to answer that question?
Lisa Berger of the board.
And would they be presented to the board, or would we contact them directly?
I don't know.
Any other questions on section 8? Section 9 talks about insurance. That's, as Rudy for some language, he threw in paragraph C. I looked at paragraph B, so there's a lot more work that needs to be done there. Effective date in section 10, basically a 6-month transition period. And then termination of services, this talks about being subject to the intergovernmental agreement. And that's about it as far as the addendum to the IGA. I wish I would have known there was a model from Wauconda to be able to base that on, because that was all rough draft. So it would have been a lot easier.
Are there any questions from the board?
And again, if one of you guys or if Doug can answer these questions or somebody else, great. If not, we'll defer them until we can speak with somebody from operations. But I know this one is not going to be for you guys, but maybe for Administrator Maxine. What is the village of Wauconda's current indebtedness on our existing dispatch equipment and the remaining repayment schedule?
There is a balloon payment due, last week that was a $30-some thousand interest payment due this year. I believe that's already been made. There's also that interest payment plus a balloon payment outstanding for next year, and that would pay off that payment. The balloon payment, I believe, is about $360,000.
So between the balloon payment and the 30 additional interest payment, close to 400 next year?
Correct.
Is there any restriction in the loan agreement as to the transfer of the equipment? Are they using it as security somehow?
I assume they are, but I would think we would have to pay that off if we're going to transfer ownership.
Okay, so we're looking at accelerating that balloon payment of almost $400,000 by about a year. Okay. Is that reflected in the numbers that you've given us?
That is not. Capital was excluded because it's basically approximately equal depending which method you follow. So we're going to status quo.
Okay. And what is the what's the average, and maybe this is an ops question, what's the average ratio between straight time and overtime at CENTCOM in a given month, or track it monthly, whatever period you guys track under. With ops, is that a question for ops? Okay. I know Trustee Barbini said he was over there observing today. Who do we need to speak with if we want to come, any one of us wants to come over there and take a look at your facilities and sit and watch and talk to people for a little bit?
If you'd like to contact me after the meeting, the director of these services.
Okay, thank you. Do you have a set of the work rules under your collective bargaining agreement with your own dispatchers that we can take a look at? So we're becoming a member, and we kind of want to know how your people are getting treated, and
I'll get the CBA for you.
thank you very much.
Open document.
I know that Trustee Starkey asked about turnover rates. What is your training regimen for updating training for your dispatchers? In other words, when do they update training? Is there a schedule for that, or is it as equipment increases, or refreshers?
I can't speak in detail about their training, about the set kind of training. Again, sometimes operators go through a rather extensive, generally anywhere from a 3 to a 6 month training regimen. Depending on the dispatcher's background, they usually start, well, they all start with call taking, basic call taking pad, entering calls into the computer in the dispatch system, and build from there. Depending on their background, some are funneled into the law enforcement side first to learn police dispatch, some are funneled into the fire side to learn fire dispatch. As part of their training, everyone is cross-trained. Everyone in the center, once they continue their training, to dispatch police or fire, call take, they dispatch our mutually box alarm system, which is the 28 Lake County Fire Departments for extra alarm fires. They provide that dispatch service. So that training regimen, and I really can't speak in the mud about exactly how it goes, but it's about a 6 month process for an inexperienced dispatcher. Now, someone that comes in with experience, they can go on the fast track because they already know the CAD system, they already know call taking. They have to be trained in our emergency medical pre-arrival instruction program, things like that. As far as ongoing training, there's regular shift training that goes on within the center to not only review procedural issues, but also any of the technology updates. A new process, a new piece of technology, a new procedure from within the water fire community is implemented. They do shift roll call type training to update their dispatchers, update the dispatchers.
What's the, if you're fully staffed currently, how many dispatchers are there?
I believe full staffing for dispatchers is 18.
Okay. And running in 6-person shifts, 8-person shifts?
CENTCOM operates a 4 platoon 12-hour system, 12-hour shift.
Is there a procedure in place at CENTCOM for prioritizing calls?
The exact procedure I can't give you a check or a verse on, but the bottom line is yes on the law enforcement side. Fire, absolutely not. Call comes in, it's dispatch.
Okay. And that's something we get from operations as well? That's right.
The exact process or procedure, that it is written down, and yes, that would be obtained.
Okay, thank you. And we may not have the answer to that, to this question, although Chief Dato may at least give us a ballpark. Do you think the fire district's levy for taxpayers would increase in order to cover the fire districts joining CENTCOM?
No, actually, money has been budgeted. It's actually been budgeted in the last 2 years. We've been maintaining a status quo contract with the village. So it's almost a wash, actually.
And this is a general concern that I have. Doug, you mentioned that about 36 times a year we've got overnight detention of prisoners in our facility. We would have to outsource that as well. Perhaps, and from what we have discussed, the most likely scenario would be Lake Zurich, but also an option to bring them to the facility at CENTCOM on fee or transport them to Lake County. My concern is the time necessary for transport and the time officer would be off the streets in Wauconda. My understanding is if we were to house detainees in Lake Zurich, we're talking about a 15-minute drive time, 15 minutes or so to process, 10 or 15 minutes because two police officers sitting together in a room just like two lawyers. You're going to shoot the bull a little bit, talk shop. So 15 minutes back, we're talking close to an hour where someone is out of the Wauconda jurisdiction at least 3 times a month. And that's not counting if we have a double detainee situation, 2 people arrested at the same time, the same incident. And I'm just curious as to the impact on village safety and police operations if we've got to take 1 or 2 officers off the street in order to process and transport detainees, and if the police department has a plan for dealing with those situations.
I don't have an answer for you now, we can provide that for you.
Because that's really, a lot of people have been talking about the safety of the dispatchers, and I have no reason to think that CENTCOM dispatchers are any different than Wauconda dispatchers. They're all dedicated employees doing their best to provide good services. My concern in terms of public safety is specifically in time off the street for our officers during critical periods. And I want to try and make sure that is fully addressed and that we understand the impact of that when we're thinking about making a decision.
Just on the face of it, the travel time would be the biggest issue, 15 there, 15 back. Processing time for the check-in of the prisoner is going to be different there versus here. So we're talking about 30 minutes out of time for officers.
Yeah, but if they're processing here, they're here. And if they need to, if there's a crisis, they're here. If they're otherwise engaged here. I would like to get the previous 6 months of CENTCOM Executive Board meeting minutes and the previous 12 months of CENTCOM Chief Op Board meeting minutes so that we can review. I understand that Exhibit B is referenced, and that is that the fee schedule and policy that Trustee Starkey will obviously need to see that. My thing here is that we understand that there is a need, the way you have portrayed it, of moving this quickly, but there remain a lot of issues and a lot of questions and a lot of missing pieces that we need to know about before we make a decision. Given the fact that we're talking about migrating both the fire district and the village police operations and public works all together, my suggestion would be that we assemble a working group with incoming chief of police, with incoming fire chief Wall, and perhaps even with Brad Payne, to make sure that we're all on the same page as to how this works and that we know how that's going to work before we're asked to make a final decision on that. I want all of these potential problems and boogeymen out in the open and vetted and able for us to know what we're getting before we pull the trigger. I know that we've been working on the fly on this, and it is a lot of information, but I think it's very important that we as trustees and as representatives of the village aren't buying and taking a vote. We need answers to all of these questions, and I don't think it's wrong to delay things a month or 2 months to find out what all these answers are and make sure all of our bases are covered before we get too far down the line in either raising one group's hopes or dashing another group's hopes. And that's what I've been trying to communicate to people for the last month as this has developed. It's simply too soon for us to make an informed decision that A, the savings are real, that A, CENTCOM is the right choice, that C, everybody is going to be able to work together to implement this in a timely manner, and what the hidden costs might be in that. So I thank you guys for coming out and addressing some of those. We'll look forward to getting more information, and I look forward to additional information from Doug. I'll let my fellow trustees step in. I'm sorry for monopolizing.
Right, real quick, I want to make sure we have the turnover rate, to spend down, we have the average over time. We can schedule visits, of course, and the trustees can work that out. Please schedule them for you. We got 4 questions that are there, we definitely want to get answers for. Can we, this, I think really what's important for us is to identify all of them now, so that, the next time we get together on the subject, or we can make a decision. It's important to, that always, it's important to come to end state, but also we can keep coming up with more and more and more. So let's try to identify what we can now. And that's the full-time staff, so these fine gentlemen come to help us.
Well, Mayor, we got this agreement Friday night, and so, these are questions based on a couple of days of review. I can't tell you I'm not going to have more questions as we continue to investigate this. The questions that you enumerated are the questions that I have right now based on our first pass through on this. And again, I appreciate the hard work that Doug has done on this, but he said he came up with a conclusion that is CENTCOM, and with all due respect, this is a big decision that is above Administrator Maxheimer's station, and this is something that the board has to be comfortable with and make sure that we know. I have all the trust and confidence in the world that Doug is doing his best to get us this information, but we're the ones who have to be confident. We're the ones who have to be comfortable before we take a vote. And it's not about how comfortable he is, or how comfortable the mayor is, or how comfortable the chief is. It's how comfortable we are as your elected officials. And that's what we're trying to do.
Thank you. I realize, though, that the process that our full-time staff has gone through to get to this point, and why CENTCOM was chosen is because their screening criteria has gotten through this. So when you look at the infrastructure, capital infrastructure cost, this was the option. We didn't have all these very high capital infrastructure costs. As Administrator Maxheimer pointed out earlier, some of these other options save us more money. But the collaborative effort between us and the fire district is what brought us to this point. We can't overlook that fact that this has been put through.
I understand, but CENTCOM has been presented the fait accompli, and we don't know what the other choices offered in terms of savings, equipment compatibility, all of that stuff that we're being told CENTCOM is going to be great at, and I have no doubt they're going to be great at, but we don't know the work that went on to decide that it was CENTCOM and not Wauconda or anybody else in the region that provides dispatch services. Yeah. This very well may be, at the end of the day, the best choice. It's the same thing I said in the last 2 meetings. But we need to, it's like when your kid comes home and says, well, teach me a math because I just wrote the answer to the math problem. I want to see the math. I want to see how we got there before we make this decision. This is a big decision. This is a lot of money. Either way you slice it. Okay. And it's the length of us not to get all the answers.
Thank you, so that's a good segue, and I want to thank the next time for working on this one, and Gato, and Chief, and on slide number 9, which I feel as though that's the nuts and bolts, that's the money. I want to see the detail. So I want to see the figures that went into that, showing the projected annual savings in 2000. As future data, we're coming to the board, or put it up on the website, so I can verify all those details in that. I'm also curious, what would be our net income fund if we raise Lakemore, who currently pays $67,000, Tower Lake $96,000, and the fire department $104,000, to be going like, how much more income would we get from that, and why aren't we getting that right now? So that is a big question on that. Anyway, a few questions along the way. I think really the last question that I have is in regards to the ancillary duties regarding village support, public safety, and miscellaneous ancillary duties of the dispatchers. Have the dispatchers be the subject matter experts on this, on the ancillary duties? I'd like to know that they've been met with, as well as the admin staff at the police department, who really knows what's going on there. Because I want that assurance that there's nothing slipping through the cracks.
First, I have a question before I make a comment. Okay. So, are we, to give you a question, are we required by law to give this kind of service?
No,
Would you explain this?
it is a service. Services do not have to be, do not have to be there. I mean, we have to put together, we can always do this, we can choose to put out for this. But, we have to put the specifications before the board, but it's not required. But it's not required, it's not mandated, especially because it would be an intergovernmental agreement. The nature of it is different.
I would even take that a step further in that you wouldn't want to bid this because you have to award that to the lowest responsible bidder. There's no way you can tie up the specifications as tightly as you need to be in order to a service is important. So I wanted to have to accept the contract with somebody to bid on this that I'm not comfortable with, even though they just need specifications. That would be a very complicated process to try to.
Thanks. Now my comment. I was prepared to come and vote tonight, but two words kept going through my head, and that's due diligence. And although I have to say that staff, and I want to thank Representatives from Centertown and the chiefs who came tonight, I think you folks have done a great job. We, as elected officials, have to demonstrate that due diligence has indeed been served. Okay, and just by the questions you heard tonight, there's still quite a few unanswered questions out there, and some questions we probably haven't thought of. So, what I'd like to propose is that we table this for this evening, but I don't want this to drag on forever, folks. It's not fair to our finances, it's not fair to our community, and it's certainly not fair to the dispatchers to let this drag on for too long. So I'm going to throw something out there, and we'll see how it sticks in the wall or if it peels off. I think I would recommend we have to make a decision, we meaning this board, on this, to kind of fall in with some of the numbers Doug has put together in terms of budgetary plan, okay, and budgetary impact. I think we should make a decision no later, in my opinion, no later than October 9th. Okay? That gives ample time for board members, and I would strongly recommend board members get their questions to Doug, email them to Doug so they can start putting them together. It is time for input from a partner in this, the fire district. Okay, you know, Chief Dado is going to jump on that retirement train, and perhaps we should really take some time and get some input from his successor, Chief Wall. Also, for those of us that were at Chief Wall's swearing-in ceremony, Chief Dado just distributed to his board information regarding consolidation with Centertown. So their board is digesting this just like we are. I think we're quite a bit ahead, but they're still going to have to digest this. It would be nice to get some input from the fire district. I don't think we have to have a joint meeting, but the main thing is we give the fire district an opportunity to weigh in and get some input. So our questions to Doug, fire district. I agree with what you want to talk about, transparency and due diligence. And I trust Doug Maxheimer implicitly. Okay? I trust his numbers. I think it's like a math problem, just like Trustee House said. You got to show the work. Now, folks, when you show the work, that opens up the door for a lot of picking away. Well, how did you come up with that number? How did you come up with that number? Trust us, those questions will be asked by this board to Doug Maxon. Okay?
One clarification. That's at October 9th.
Yes.
This is Friday.
Oh, I'm sorry, I meant October 6th. I meant October 6th. Beg your pardon. Beg your pardon. October 6th. But I think that would give enough time for us to get the questions to Doug, have him or staff at CENTCOM process those questions, get them back to us so we can look at them in some timely manner. And maybe it means have an agenda item in each of our next meetings where some of this is discussed rather than just, one big opportunity and, there's so much stuff, everybody gets lost. And sometimes it generates more questions. But due diligence must be served on this. And I think I've already heard from a couple of trustees that they feel the same way. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you, and thank you, Chief, for coming out tonight. We appreciate all your input and your work, and Doug, as usual, thank you for all your hard work on this. It's a great report. There's a lot of information here. I agree with a lot of the trustee comments already. I think we need to work with Chief Wall and talk with the fire district. I'm not sure about waiting on the police because we don't know how long that process is going to take. That would be my only caveat there, I guess. And I'd like maybe putting a deadline on it. We need to be fair to everybody. The trustees are being vetted and our finances. It is about fiscal responsibility. That's why we're here. And I think we need to do our due diligence. I think most of the trustees now are have been looking more and more into it. We're asking more and more questions. We're more involved, even behind the scenes, calling, emailing, talking to different people, different organizations. So I think putting a deadline on this, I think is good for everyone involved.
Other comments? Thank you. Thank you. So the chairman.
Board, Mayor, the fire district is your partner in this. Chief Wall has been to all the meetings that we've had researching things. He's up to speed and very happy to work with Doug and anyone else you need him to work with. However, we are your partners in this. We do agree due diligence. The board did receive a proposal from CENTCOM along with the governmental addendum. They're reviewing it as of last Thursday. So, we'll be able to work with all of you on it. And one other point of clarification for Mr. Schaefer in Senate Bill, now where the act is 0006. The 250,000, and I'll quote it, it's 750, or 50 actually, 750, 50.4A, Section 3. In any county with a population of at least 250,000 or less than a million, that has more than one municipal system board, joint municipal system board, so qualified government entities, each 911 authority shall reduce the number of PSAPs by at least 50% or 2 PSAPs, whichever is greater. And then it goes on to speak about some of the exceptions which are in there. So hopefully that answers your question.
Thank you, Chief. Okay, the chair will get a motion then to table item B and then we'll bring it down.
I'll make a motion to table until October 6th to revisit that time and obviously expect additional information each month as it becomes available. But there's an actual decision tabled to go sooner than October 6th.
Second. Roll call, please.
Trustee Nick?
Yes.
Trustee Burkini?
Yes.
Trustee Sparky? Yes. Trustee Armstrong?
Yes.
Trustee Black?
Yes.
Trustee Todd?
Yes.
Okay, consideration of approval of the annual appropriation ordinance for the village of Wauconda fiscal year 2015-16 in the amount of $30,408,357, and 2, annual estimated revenues to be filled with the appropriation ordinance for the fiscal year 2015-16
Audience should not yet. There's something
This
else
is part of
coming.
your, combination of your budget process, your property tax levy process, this is a statutory requirement. Typically, you take some form of your budget, you include it in the appropriation ordinance, and you file that with the county clerk. They check that against your tax levy to make sure that the taxes levied are actually budgeted for expenditure in the appropriation ordinance. So we had a public hearing earlier tonight, and nobody showed up with supposed to comment, and there were no written comments provided as well. So we have also advertised in the Daily Herald 10 days prior to the public hearing, so those obligations have been met, and we would recommend approval.
Comments of board? So I'll take a motion that will approve.
Mayor, if I could ask folks, as they're leaving here discussing, we're still trying to have a meeting up here, so please be a little early so we can hear everybody. Thank you.
The item 8 in consideration, Chair will take motion for consideration and approval for the annual appropriation ordinance of the village of Wauconda for fiscal year 2015-16 in the amount of $39,408,357, and the estimated revenues to be filed with the appropriation ordinance for the fiscal year 2015-16. Move. Second. Roll call, please.
Trustee Knight?
Yes.
Trustee Burkett?
Yes.
Trustee Starkey? Yes. Trustee Marshall?
Yes.
Trustee Black?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, consideration and approval of an ordinance amending the water and sewer rates of the village of Wauconda as recommended by the village services committee.
I think, thank you, Mayor.
Sure, Brad.
The current village ordinance calls for a automatic 4% sewer and water rate increase every July 1st. If you recall, during our strategic planning session, staff recommended that the village consider changing the existing water and sewer rate structure to gradually move towards a single rate. Currently, the village has a rate classification for residential, business, and industrial. Industrial users have the highest rate, followed by business and residential. Staff feels that this tiered rate structure may be a deterrent for businesses to locate in the county. So staff is recommending that we stick with the increase, but we increase the residential rate by 4%, the business rate by 2%, and the industrial rate by 0%. And over the next 3 years, the rates will be close enough so we can have a uniform rate. We feel that the single rate will not only strengthen our opportunities for economic development, but it ties directly into the recently adopted economic development strategic plan to strengthen and maintain relationships with the existing business owners, business community, and update codes of how we can meet the needs of businesses. Village Attorney Magna has drafted the attached ordinance amendment for your consideration.
Okay, any questions?
Yeah. How did we wind up with a staggered system in the first place? Is, for instance, is sewer impact for industrial higher than sewer impact for residential?
So the industrial users on the sewer do impact, have a greater impact. However, we have a separate permit in place where each one of those users are inspected each year and have a additional fee. So I'm not exactly sure why we have that staggered rate.
Okay, so we are elsewhere taking into account any additional impact that they may have.
That's correct.
Okay, that was my concern is that we weren't putting ourselves in a bad position, and this obviously we've got to think about these measures as we continue to pursue legislation in water. Will this lessening of those funds available short term impact us in a negative way as we continue to make the improvements related to water?
I don't feel well. I feel that the water and sewer fund is extremely healthy and it can adequately absorb this change.
All right, thank you.
Any comments? Okay, Chair, I'll do a motion then for the approval of an ordinance amending the water and sewer rates for the village of Wauconda as recommended by the village services committee. So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Knight?
Yes.
Trustee Zambini?
Yes.
Trustee Starkey? Yes. Trustee Marshall?
Yes.
Trustee Black?
Yes.
Trustee Powell.
Yes.
Okay, item C, consideration and approval of development committee recommendations as follows. An ordinance amending chapter 95, section 43 and 44, adding administrative expenses incurred by the village to abate a nuisance to the charge assessed against the property owner and adjusting the time frame for placing liens against properties as recommended by the development committee. And number 2, which is amending the fiscal 2015-16 police department budget to include $20,000 for property maintenance code enforcement efforts.
Do we need motion first, or do you want to discuss? I want to thank Doug and staff for working on this matter that came up. And just in my neighborhood alone, we had several things, well, a few vacant properties that were getting out of hand. And I'm sure that's occurring in my neighborhood experience. People are still going through the recovery of 2008. But that being said, I think this has come up with a workable approach to dealing, especially with the grass issues. And we have to put our money where our mouth is. We can't depend on one association to take care of this. And sometimes it's just chasing the people down who are assigned to the banks or whoever becomes a nightmare. We'll continue to do that, but we have to allocate resources to address this problem. And then our plan is to lean those properties and hopefully start replenishing those funds once these properties sell. But something's got to be done. Just leaving the situation the way it currently is not better. That's it.
Thank you. Other comments?
Just another comment, just a reminder that the TSO or other staff will be handling these to be properly trained to handle the time in the building, some kind of respectful management job description on those people. But they may not be.
Other comments of board? Okay, I challenge a motion in for the consideration and approval of the development committee recommendations for ordinance amending chapter 95, section 43 and 44, and the administrative expenses incurred by the village to abate a nuisance to the charges assessed against the property owner, the adjusting the time frame for placing liens in property recommended by the development committee, and 2, and then the fiscal year 2015-16 police department budget to $20,000 for property maintenance code enforcement efforts.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Trustee May?
Yes.
Trustee Burke?
Yes.
Trustee Starkey? Yes. Trustee Armstrong?
Yes.
Trustee Black?
Yes.
Trustee Powell?
Yes.
The item B, the Natural Resources Committee recommendation to add a $2 surcharge on fleet derby fines and bank lake for lake management.
Thank you, Mayor. At the July 14, 2014 Natural Resources Committee discussed amending the special event permit policy to include the bank lake management fee. This would be in addition to the permit fee. The bank lake management fee would be assessed for any fishing gear for tournament on Bank Lake, and a fee of $2 per participant for any derby or tournament would be charged in addition to the fee. The Bank Lake Advisory Committee administers these derbies and tournaments that are held on the lake, and actually currently collects this $2 fee that is deposited into the village escrow account to be used for management of the lake. So basically, this amendment to the policy would be simply formalizing what already takes place. So it was a recommendation by both the Bank Lake Advisory Committee and the consensus of the Natural Resources Committee to amend this policy to include this fee.
Okay, comments? Very good. Chair will take a motion in the approval of the $2 surcharge on fishing derby tournaments at Bank Lake for the
So,
roll call, please.
Trustee May? Trustee Barberini?
Yes.
Trustee Starkey? Yes. Trustee Armstrong?
Yes.
Trustee Black?
Yes.
Trustee Powell?
Yes.
Okay, last item, we need a request for jurisdiction committee for approval of text or plaque honoring PSC Jeffrey Morris for the 9/11 memorial. It's actually the Heroes of Freedom Memorial. And this is as amended because the copy included the word extra. Don is here for the committee. He is the project manager for the memorial. Do you have comments or questions about the documents before you?
Doug, I know the building permit was issued prematurely on this. Have the documents all been submitted that we were expecting to be submitted for submitting the agreement?
I received a bundle of information tonight that shows the commitments for in-kind services that exceeded the target level of 80%, being about 85%. All the identifications, the whole harness agreements are signed and dated. Let's see, what else was there? Construction schedule. Yeah. So those three items.
So everything that agreement required to be submitted before that building permit was issued has now been provided without missing anything?
That is correct.
My concern is, I haven't had a chance to look at the this new language yet. I think that there are quite a few references to the military and the wars subsequent to September 11th. I think those are inappropriate for this memorial. We have a military memorial.
Those are the mission statements for the memorial.
I understand there. I think that it is important to keep this memorial focused on the events of September 11th and not let this creep into something beyond that. We let this creep into something beyond that, it becomes a political issue. There is still a great divide in this country over how and why we got into two wars following the events of September 11th. And I would hate to see this memorial politicized by including references to those wars. People feel very strongly about this, and nothing you or I or anybody else has said is going to change their opinions on that. I would prefer to keep this dedicated to the first responders and other victims who suffered on September 11th. So they from the airplanes, everything, and take out the stuff about.
We already have an agreement in place that already acknowledges the Heroes of Freedom Memorial as a memorial for the Iraq War, the Afghanistan War, as well as the 1911. The agreement's already been agreed to and approved by the board. That's already established. What this class in that agreement, and I believe one of the trustees Starkey mentioned that this is like a payment for the memorial. The item, which is the column from the World Trade Center. We agreed as a board to provide a dedication plaque for CFC Morris. And that plaque will be in a wording of the agreement with between 12 or no greater than 12 to 18 inches in size. So that's what we're sticking to, the agreement that's already been agreed to, and this represents that plaque. So it could be as simple as acknowledging, the first couple sentences there of the plaque, or it could include the others, which is recommended by one of the other trustees, that would be inclusive and also represent the responders, others from the other listed here. So that part's already been established. This is a memorial. It is part of the mission statement for the memorial. It's a memorial for the Heroes of Freedom, which included, and was the reason why this beam was brought to Wauconda was an honor and memory of this memorial.
I have no problem acknowledging the donation from CFC Morris's family and acknowledging that. I think language along the lines of efforts to support Morris and his family in memory of CFC Director Morris, United States Marine Corps, who made the ultimate sacrifice in defense of our country, and then skip the next part and go down to the heartbreaking stories of unimaginable loss suffered by the victims and their families, the memory of the firefighters, police officers, EMTs, and the tenacity of the people. But to leave out that second to last clause and to leave out the description of the greater description of T.S.C. Morris, and simply acknowledge his donation from his family and the sacrifice that he made, I think is sufficient to meet the terms of the donation and avoid politicizing this for years and years to come. I have no problem with acknowledging T.S.C. Morris and his sacrifice, but it is a thank you, and this is not a memorial to T.S.C. Morris. And I want to make that clear. And even the language that's edited still makes this in memory of T.S.C. Morris. This is not being erected to memorialize T.S.C. Morris. As far as I know, T.S.C. Morris never set foot in the village of Wauconda. I honor his sacrifice, as I do every person who served and sacrificed in our military. But in terms of this particular memorial, I think we can accomplish the same goals with a little bit of editing on this and make it something that I can vote for. Sure. In its current condition, I can't support it.
Trustee Barbini, you actually submitted a good portion of this. What are your thoughts?
No, I did not. I did not submit this. I went back to my notes on April. One of the ordinances referred to it.
Yep.
And I do think this is certainly more inclusive than the draft that we before. Okay, and my concern was inclusivity. Okay? Here's what I said that day. This memorial is dedicated to the memory of T.S.C. Jeffrey Morris, United States Marine Corps, who died in the The victim dedicated to the victims of the 9/11/2001 attacks and their families who carry on. The first responders who serve and protect America's communities, and the members of the armed forces of the United States who defend our freedom. Nothing mentioned in my original remarks about the wars that have been subsequently fought and then dedicated September 11, 2015. I do like a little bit of the history here of where this artifact came from. I think that's appropriate. People need to know that. But I think the short and simple way of presenting the dedication is still the best way.
Sure.
Just fine.
Okay, so looks like you read off most of what you have. What you got it out of this, but you pretty much, when you add some detail on the birthday and such, that's pretty much what it says.
It's pretty much what it says. I'm no English major by any means. I kind of like the reference to the people of our great nation who have been suffering grievous loss and maintain enduring courage and stand tall again as one nation. I don't know if people would be offended by the one nation under God's peace, but it wouldn't hurt to mention, if you talk about inclusivity, what about all the people? So something in that regard. But someone a little more talented than I think needs to wordsmith this a little bit more.
And I'd be happy to express to you what I think will satisfy all of the interested parties, and that is, this is what is here now. Heroes of Freedom Memorial, Village of Wauconda, Illinois. The artifact before you is a column from the 91st floor of the North World Trade Center, and was provided to the Heroes of Freedom Memorial by the New York, New Jersey Port Authority through the efforts of Kurt Morris and his family in memory of T.S.C. Jeffrey Morris, the United States Marine Corps, who made the ultimate sacrifice in defense of our country. To the memory of those heartbreaking stories of unimaginable loss suffered by victims and their families on September 11, 2001, and the sacrifices which followed. To the memory of the firefighters, police officers, and EMTs who lost their lives that day so that others could live, and to those who now stand ready to again make such sacrifices. And to the tenacity of the people of our great nation, who after suffering grievous loss and wounds maintain enduring courage to stand tall again as one nation under God. I've cut very little out of what you have provided, and I think it avoids any future controversy and still satisfies our debt to the Morris family for helping us get this, and also recognizing the scope of the event of September 11th.
Well, the only paragraph that you did read there was the one referring to the United States Armed Forces.
Right.
So,
And I handed out some of the description of BFD Morrison's survey.
okay. So again, I mean, that's part of the whole purpose of the memorial, because,
We have some memorial.
Right.
that's, this memorial is specifically for the
For what happened.
Okay, our agreement clearly states, this agreement's already signed and it's already been agreed to by the board. The agreement clearly states it's about taking roads and street members,
Then they said no to that.
the veterans from both of their boards. And that's actually part of the memorial. I mean, the right side of the wall, the tribute to the Afghan, the right and left side was erected. So,
This was added after the fact, though.
no,
Not,
that was.
not the plan that we were prior to that in the agreement.
That was actually before the agreement was passed, that was very, and the names are in the middle of the two memorials to each board. Don, you sit on the committee and you're the project manager. Do you have any comments that you'd like to offer to your?
I think the memorial meeting for everyone, not just the time, walk along the way, all over the world. We are very fortunate to have. Absolutely. But this reflects the lawsuit on September 11, 2001. Not the ensuing wars in Iraq. And that's not what it represents. It represents what happened that day.
Susan, did you have a comment?
Well, no, I said the original mission statement, and I wish I had my documentation with me, it did say that to the people that served that day and the ongoing service people that subsequently had fought wars against terrorism, it was in the mission statement. So it was the ongoing, you know, and also the ongoing protection of the service members of our country, and it was in the mission statement.
With all due respect to the board, didn't vote on a mission statement, voted on the agreement to accept the artifact and gave us ultimate control over what the plaque said. And the mission statement might be what guided you or other people in creating it, but it's not what is before this board, and it was not what was before this board when the vote was taken. And that's why we reserve the right to determine what the ultimate dedication plaque says. And
So
think
you
I'm here,
gotta,
I think
you
I'm
gotta
here.
know that the spirit of this memorial in the first place is that we're all, because E.F.C. Morris, who served in Iraq, was killed. That was the whole point in the first place. And so you run the risk of settling the whole deal by trying to go back on the fact that this was part of the deal.
The agreement,
The agreement memorial was clearly for the victims of September 11th as well as the subsequent two wars.
I have the agreement, can I have the floor, please? 2.5 in the agreement, this is what we voted on. This agreement is not to be construed as a joint venture between the parties, but is instead to be construed as an agreement to establish cooperative efforts in order to provide a dignified resting place for an artifact which represents the terror of an attack upon the citizens of the United States, as well as the hope for a brighter future shown by the American spirit of recovery and honorable renovation of the area of Manhattan, which suffered the attack of 9/11. Furthermore, in this agreement, section 213, inscriptions, carving, and bas-relief, in addition to the reference plans, shall be approved by the village board and board incorporation on the memorial improvements.
Thank you.
So there's no argument with regards to the fact that the board has to approve the inscriptions. That's never been in question. The point is that the omission of the unenforcement doesn't add up to what the memorial is about.
I believe that the language that says, to the memory of those heartbreaking stories of national loss suffered by victims and their families, and to the sacrifices which followed.
Yep.
Is covered. It covers the military.
Yes.
So clearly that doesn't fit with what our mission statement. I mean, do you think the committee would accept this stuff? They're going to be very angry.
Let me just say, this was a lot of people's concern at the very beginning.
Yep.
That this was being presented by Mr. Morris as a memorial to his son. Not that his son doesn't deserve an honor, Not that Mr. Morris should be faulted for trying to honor his son.
That's not fair.
But I think there is a large groundswell of people in this town who think it's inappropriate to erect a monument dedicated to someone from somewhere else who has no connection to this town.
That's not what you're arguing against having the military, and you already agreed that it was others. Chief Perry, you sit on the committee as well. What do you think that, most of the rest of this has been accepted with regards to this, except for the armed forces. How do you see it?
Mayor, I haven't been in the role to hear the whole discussion, so I'd rather not.
Okay, fair enough. So,
We read it up the way that, what the I was talking about the budget group, would that be one of these, that will be opinion on? Deputy Fair Target.
the biggest thing with this is the fact that it's, you're singling out, you're excluding the military. That's what
Well, they're not.
That's not what it was for.
He's trying to depoliticize it.
But that's not what the becomes tax.
Right, that's true.
Right.
But that's not the
Bend a little bit.
The problem with it is that is the mission statement. You have to-
It's a mission statement, it's not binding.
We're gonna write it up.
Vote it on the way you guys want it, because you had the final approval.
So we can do that. I don't have a problem writing that down in the committee, but I do have a problem with the fact that you're trying to exclude veterans from that thing.
We have a veterans memorial already. Right.
Well, it's not. The war memorial next to it is not. Don, you created that memorial. What's in that war memorial? Exactly. They are eventually going to be that.
What do they recognize to be an anomaly? What do they recognize to be an anomaly? They don't. So no word though.
So that's another project on itself.
Or the real. I can't agree.
That's another project on itself. Just like it is in the national, the national front, they're all separate issues. All separate projects.
The president is on the.
So.
Are you taking comments from the public since you're asking
No,
people?
we're not gonna comment.
Why?
Let
Why?
other people speak, Mayor.
Just like we had a-
You let other
You
people
wouldn't let
speak.
him.
You are out of order. You are out of order.
I don't care.
So the
I
bottom
want
line
to
is
ask
that
the two
we will
attorneys
bring
that
this
are in
back.
here, if they agree with the things on their God.
You are out of
We have
order.
problems
Chief, could you
in
remove
this
it from
town.
the meeting?
Yeah, I have a problem with under God
We
too.
had a problem in this town with these, one through years ago, so I wonder if they
Thank you.
actually did. Wonder what we did.
No. I got you on tape, you guys.
Are you arrested?
All right, so we'll bring that back to the meeting, we'll discuss it.
That is reasonable.
That has nothing to do with it. It has to do with accomplishing a mission that is specifically here. That's what it has to do. And you have to stand for.
And under God.
Well, I'll change it, just like you did the rest.
So, okay, for the mayor's report, the only thing I'll mention this because it is the late hour here, it's almost 10 o'clock at night. For the call, we got so much attention there for the question and answer phone call deal. Got invited to do that and didn't give it much thought. I've done a lot of speaking to a lot of groups.
Oh.
I understand I got a bigger splash than what I had about that. And I didn't do any disrespect to any of the board. I'm not telling you that. It's kind of the last minute thing, so I just wanted to say that so no disrespect was meant to any of that. And all the information shared is all the information that was shared in previous board meetings. In fact, we just got the notes. I've got the slides that you guys for the notes. So, other than that, I appreciate all your hard work. Dispatch, working everybody 2 months now. So getting close anyway, and hopefully we can get to a good resolution. The one thing I really think about that is that it's imperative for us for our financial sustainability in the future. And as Doug pointed out, if we did do consolidation and saves about 1.2 million, our deficit's looking at 1.9. We still have $700,000 to make up, even if we did do that. So that's a significant number. So that's in the future. That's all I got. Trustee McIntyre's report.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to come up obviously along the way here with the outburst topic. I just wanted to address a couple of comments that were made, that have been made publicly before, and even here tonight, how about in 2010, no meetings were held. Obviously, we had board meetings, we had committee committee meetings. We also had our staff and fire district and a lot of volunteers with door to door. But we also had over 20 meetings that were involved with public and city organizations and not. So there was due diligence there, just like there's due diligence down here. So it's just, something needs to be cleared up. That's all I have to say. And actually, one more thing on that. This is actually the referendum letter that went out at that time, in 2010. And obviously, we all keep hearing about what was promised, what wasn't. But there was also a part in here where it say the village's, and this is if the referendum passed, the village's projected deficit would be offset through 2013. So it was 3 years. And obviously, we're 2 years past that. We're still working through everything we can. We're trying to keep everything balanced and moving forward, and we want to be fair with everyone. So, obviously, some tough decisions are coming, and they're coming soon. So, I just want to clear the air on that. As far as the last week and a half has been a tough week. I think for a lot of people, for board members, we saw a groundbreaking for a memorial, which I think we all support. We've been public about that. Unfortunately, things happened with that mayor that didn't live up to the agreement. We're just now getting that tonight, a week after the groundbreaking. What had happened last night? Huge disappointment. Huge. I really didn't know how to respond to it. When I first heard about it, I spent on the phone with numerous people today, few emails here and there. We've had these open sessions, we've talked publicly, we've talked privately about communication. No ambushes, and I feel that as a board member, I've been ambushed twice in the last week. With that, and it's been 2 years ago, it continues. We think it's going to get better, we hear it's going to get better. I'm going to ask the board tonight, what I would like to have put on the next agenda is a resolution for a vote of no confidence in the European Party. I think we need to take a stand. I'd like to hear the board's comments, but I think it's time. We're talking to people, we've got a lot of talking to do, and it's time to put the rubber to the road, and we've got to move forward, and we've got 2 more years to go, and we've got to keep going, and we need communication, and we need to work together. Make them better.
Okay, Trustee Burton, you have the floor.
Well, it's pretty tough thing to follow with just a mundane news report, but over the last 2 years, there's been many conversations between Mayor Mark and this board, either collectively or individually, about the issue of communication between the board, communication between the residents, and keeping the board in the loop and in a timely manner to avoid surprises. Surprises may be nicely targets, but they're not fun targets. Last night's town hall meeting caught this board by surprise. We had no idea this was going to occur. Simply put, it was something that's new and the mayor probably feels he's being ambushed now. But that's how it may go. On numerous levels, the mayor's participation in that town hall meeting was ill-advised and reflected projecting. Instead of building understanding, I think it created more divisiveness on this issue. The mayor's actions last night in his recent pushing through of the building permit for the 9/11 memorial, without providing the documentation needed at the time that permit was issued, reflected disregard for the opinions and directions of this board. As a result of these actions, I will support a motion of no confidence in the action of the
So that's a separate issue, and the treasurer for the committee is in the hospital. He takes care of all that paperwork. But I didn't come back and fix that paperwork because the treasurer was in the hospital. So that was all done independent of any of my actions or anything that I've said. Period. So that's nothing was pushed through, and no one was aware that when those buildings had come through, that these other documents were required. The staff wasn't responsible for that.
I'll move on to my trustee comments, and tonight they're divided into two sections. What I'm happy to report on, and secondly, what I'm not. There was a natural resources meeting last week. We discussed the user guidelines for the lake to balance the users, the voters, as well as the residents' concerns. We had very many residents and voters at the meeting, and I feel like we reached a very good compromise. DC Thunder, as well as Director Fink, drafted up these guidelines. We posted them on social media and website. They will be, we also have them here to distribute tonight, and we've given them all the emails. So hopefully, with increased control, which we have been seeing, there's a lot of these issues hopefully will be resolved. And I want to thank, again, DC Thunder for his attention to my emails and my calls on these matters. His control matters. It seems like maybe we have them under control. We have to report on that. Cruise night was nice. It was great weather, great turnout. I'll have Chuck report on that more with the numbers. And the purpose of this, the members, is to promote Wauconda. And but it's great to walk cruise night and see so many people I don't know. These are not people from our town. These are visitors. They're coming to our town to spend money and to experience what the good part of Wauconda is. And I want to also thank Public Works for all their work on this. Elise, who manages a lot of the day-to-day stuff. Chuck Black and Jason Morris, who have been wonderful volunteers to make sure this happens. Now I'm going to get to what I'd rather not be addressing. First, it's been said on social media and other things. Well-managed governments keep their financial house in order. I've asked for a monthly treasurer's report. I want to see it. Without it, this board is flying month to month. We don't know where we are at budget to date, and we need that. And we also indicated at our budget meeting that we wanted to replace the finance director. So I'd like to know the plans by the next meeting, the timeline for that. Next up, public safety. Police staff and overtime reports. I haven't seen one in a while. If you want to start talking about cost-cutting measures, that's the first place to start. And then finally, status of key staff evaluations. We need to be honest. We need to get them completed. We heard about CENTCOM's good HR policy. We don't practice them here right now, and I'm not happy about that. The status of our village administrator's evaluation. He's been with us 18 months. Now, he has gotten a key to the city, but he hasn't had a performance evaluation since he's been there. That is not a good HR practice. And then, once again, this room is filled with acts on the night that we'd all be rather doing something, and why is that? Because it's been a circus in town for 2 years. Having been involved in local government for 15 years, I've never seen a playbook like we've endured here in town for the past 2 weeks. If this dispatch thing isn't a matter of saving a few dollars, this board is very keen on fiscal responsibility. And as I stated, I'm disappointed with some of the basics of management and financial reporting. When I ask for information, I expect unbiased facts, not a political dog and pony show like whatever that telephone town hall meeting was last night. That I learned midway through the conversation with a friend who asked me about it, and I knew nothing about it. That doesn't work in our town, my town. That game may work in Springfield or Washington, but it doesn't belong here, and that was completely inappropriate. While there's this facade of teamwork, I've been bullied at closed session meetings, and despite good government sessions with an emphasis on trust, the mayor continues to ignore our branches or directives and shut the board out while working on his projects. He doesn't seem to get the checks and balances of our democracy. So while we're not going to officially vote tonight, it's not on the agenda. I support Trustee Knight's attempt to get it on the next agenda, and this hopefully will get his attention, the staff's, on the priorities and processes that will be in Wauconda for the next 2 years.
I didn't know the committee report. I want to thank Doug very much for your presentation tonight, along with Dave, Chief Maple Clark, and Chief Larry. Thanks for coming along. Good seeing you. Like I say, I have no committee report. There's not too much I can add that hasn't been said by the previous three trustees, and I am full support of it. So, at the end of the next meeting, that's up for that. Do you enjoy your well-deserved vacation, Brad?
First of all, thank everybody for coming out tonight. It is nice to hear everyone's thoughts. For all the people that have emailed, talking to you and around town, I do appreciate it. It is nice to hear everyone's thoughts. It really is. It's not going one ear, not the other. We are paying attention, which is why we decided tonight, even though thank you again, Doug, for all your hard work and all the information you brought forward. But I do feel better that we're going to take the time to evaluate all the numbers and just make sure, because everything is by the numbers for something to really consider. And as for the vote of no confidence, although tough, I have to agree with Trustee Knight. There's just been situation after situation the last couple of years. I'm not going to dwell on them. Some of them have been brought up, some haven't. But it is just a complete lack of communication and something that needs to be fixed. Like the rest of the trustees, last night was one more time about being, in my mind, being blindsided. I was at a board meeting for the Buchanan Township Historical Society when my phone started going off. I knew nothing about it, and I don't know if you want to call it a last straw or whatever, but things are not improving, so I do encourage that trust tonight. On the positive side, everything in natural resources is done at the last meeting and everything since. I think it's great. I don't know if it's the correct answer, but we are attempting to take care of the situation out of Lake Point and in other points further going forward. I endorse the $2 surcharge. I think that's a great idea. It's going for the right reason and it's going for the right place. And in closing, as I was talking to actually several before tonight, that was nice. Part of our economic development program, I would call tonight, this is one more night of complete success. Thanks to everybody, I will not name names, thanks to just everybody who came out to help that be what it is. I know by 4:15, we already filled up Main Street. By the time I left at 5:15, 5:30, so I could get here tonight, we'd already filled up Maple and it started going down Mill Street again. I got a text from Jason Lowry that said they had no idea what the number is, but it's easily over 500. If they were all the way down to the Transfiguration lot across the street from the old Mill Street system. So, knowing that every car had at least one driver, most of them as they were coming through had a passenger, we're looking at easily 750 people that came into town. And granted, some of them were from here, but a lot of them aren't. I was driving from our meeting tonight, the village all over here, and I think we passed at least 3 or 4 more cars at 6:30 still showing up. I think that's great. There's a lot of people, if you look around, you can tell they're from out of town, which is the whole point of this. I would like to thank Main Street. I know this is a happy burden, I guess. I'm not sure what words I would use to describe it. Everybody can benefit, some more than others, obviously. But I would like to also extend my thank you to Main Street business owners and as well as Public Works for all the work and their patience with this, because I'll tell you what, when Jason and I went to the Mudline cruise show, I think it was 2 years ago, they were telling us, good idea, great idea, pick a good night, and be patient because it's going to be a year or two before you even get out of your car. So for all of you that don't know the history, our first month last year was over 100, our second month was over 200, our third month was over 300. Our first one this year was 430, and although we don't have exact count, in 5 events we've gone from 0 to 500 plus cars. I would like So just in closing, I know it's a lot longer than I really wanted to speak, but I was happy. So I do just want to thank everybody for their help, for all the people that put that on, whether it's behind the scenes like Public Works, the police department, and everybody else, the village, police, and everybody else, because I think this is a great thing to go, because 500 cars come out here on their own and sit there and show off their cars. I think that's amazing. Thank you very much.
I'll try and keep it real quick because I know people at 7 o'clock, they want to get out of here. First of all, I wholeheartedly concur with Trustee Knight's resolution. My history in this is well known to everybody. It is one thing after another, and it's been a steady drumbeat, and it needs to be put to bed. I do have a committee report, which came as a surprise to a number of us at the License and Admin Committee today. And this is part and parcel of this. We got an email a week ago that had a matrix of committee assignments, but I think we were all unclear as to whether it actually constituted formal committee assignments and chair assignments, or whether it was just out there for further discussion. But I'm happy to report that we did meet as the chair of the License and Admin Committee this evening, and we continued our good work reviewing some of the building code stuff and continuing to try and streamline our village code. I do believe that when we're finally done in the very, very short future, we will have reduced our existing code book by well over 50%, which is a boon to residents and businesses alike to try and navigate through what is a complicated, often inconsistent and conflicting code. And I want to thank everybody, all different departments who have contributed. Doug has been a big help. Brad has been a big help. DC Bender and Chief Yost have been a big help. Chief Tato and incoming Chief Wall have sat with us as well. Other people from the fire department to help us address all of these complicated issues. So I want to thank everybody who has helped with that. And I will just say thanks to everybody for your patience as we work through these difficult things. We have a great village, and it will continue to be great. And we will continue to work through this and come out shining as we always have. Thank you.
So, a couple things. One is first is that this, there's always been tension amongst us from the start. My first day in office, we had a discussion with the village administrator and I, and asked her, told her, not execution, so you don't face any consequences. Somebody else in the village.